Next important topic that we have taken from economy again is inflation target breach. See, I have explained at great length in very great detail about what inflation is, what are the tools to counter inflation, and how RBI tackles inflation. We will not be talking about that today. We will be talking about something different from the governance point of view. Okay, why this is in news? Because inflation target has been breached, as you can see. Between January and July this year, the inflation reached 7.79%. Okay, the inflation reached 7.79%, and we know that the range of inflation targeting in India is the range of inflation that should ideally be is 4 plus minus 2%. That is from 2% to 6%. Okay. 4 minus 2% is 2%, 4 plus 2% is 6%. Okay. So in India, according to the Monetary Policy Committee mandate, what is the specific range for inflation to lie? It is between 2% and 6%, anywhere between 2% and 6%. Very low inflation shows deflation. Deflation means the economy is stagnating. Very high inflation shows lack of jobs. Okay, because inflation erodes capital. So in the case of high inflation, the companies do not invest and then they do not hire. That leads to fall in the number of jobs. But an adequate inflation between 2% and 6% shows a growing economy. Okay, where jobs are being created, and regularly a stable inflation is more important rather than fluctuating low inflation is not good, fluctuating high inflation is not good, very high inflation is not good, very low inflation is not good. Moderate inflation between 2 to 6%, basically around 4 to 5% is a good inflation. Okay, but it should be a stable one. Okay, it should be stable one. Okay, so what happened was, inflation target breached for the first time in 6 years. Since 2015, this was the first inflation target breach that has happened. And for that, RBI is forming a committee within itself to report to the government as to what were the reasons that led to this inflation breach. Okay, so this is the news. Let's look at some background of it. The average retail inflation January. Now, what is the index that we look at to measure inflation? It is consumer price index. Earlier, it was wholesale price index, but now it is consumer price index. What is consumer price index? Consumer price index is an average of a certain basket of goods. Basket of goods means certain number of goods like toothpaste, consumer goods and everything. Okay. So all these goods, they take their monthly prices and calculate their value, the rate of change in the value of those goods. Okay. And they also calculate the rate of change with respect to the 2011 level, the level at 2011. That is why 2011 is called the base year. 2011 is called the base year. Okay, now we have found out two important points, that whenever we are talking about the inflation in India, we are talking about the consumer price inflation, CPI inflation. The second point is that the base year for CPI is 2011. Okay, the average retail inflation January and April June, according to data by NSSO, National Statistical Office. NSO is the office or the body which calculates inflation, CPI inflation for us. Okay, it was between 6.34% and 7.28% respectively. But our range is 4 plus minus 2%. At max, it could have gone to 6%, but it was well above 7.28%. A few of the reasons that we can figure out in the very beginning, in one of my previous lecture, I talked about it even, what are the reasons of the inflation right now. The first one is the Russia-Ukraine war, which is actually adding to the food inflation, commodity price rise, international commodity price rise, and also the rise in the price of crude oil. Okay. Okay. So these are the major contributors to in rising inflation. In case of breach of targeted inflation, the Monetary Policy Committee is bound by the mandate to provide an explanation to the government. In case of breach of the targeted inflation, the Monetary Committee policy is bound by the mandate to provide an explanation to the government. Okay, what is a Monetary Policy Committee? Under the Reserve Bank of India Act 1934, in 2016, Monetary Policy Committee was formed. Monetary policy means policy which governs the flow of money in the economy. Okay. Then what is the fiscal policy? Fiscal policy is the policy which controls the taxation in the country. That is called fiscal policy. Monetary policy governs the flow of money, whereas fiscal policy governs the taxation. That is the very basic difference. So under the Reserve Bank of India Act 1934, RBI is entrusted with the responsibility of conducting monetary policy for India. Conducting monetary policy for India means controlling inflation. How? By controlling the flow of money. Okay. Monetary Policy Committee framework. Okay, let's have a very short look, very in brief, as to how monetary policy functions and what task this RBI does in controlling the inflation. What is inflation? Okay, inflation. Inflation is general rise in price. General rise in price. If price of some specific good is rising, that will not be considered inflation in economy. If there is a general trend towards a rise of price in the most of the goods, then that will be considered inflation. Okay. Now, how is the supply and demand of money governing inflation? That is how we will understand why a monetary policy is needed to control the inflation, right? Now, I said that the target is 4 plus minus 2%. The targeted inflation should be between 4 plus minus 2%, right? Now, let's look at what the inflation is and how it functions. For example, this is RBI. Okay, this is RBI. RBI is the body which controls inflation, right, through monetary policy. For example, this is SBI, the bank that people use. Okay. Now, if SBI is pumping in a lot of money, if SBI is having a lot of money with itself, what will it do? It will start giving loans to everyone. Okay? When people start taking loan, for example, when corporates start taking loan, what they do? They start investing. They start investing in infrastructure. When they start investing in infrastructure, they purchase a lot of goods, okay, due to which the demand of goods rises. Demand rises, okay. Secondly, they will have to hire also. They hire a lot of people, due to which wages increase. Wages increase. Moreover, since a lot of people are being hired, goods are produced at a faster rate. Goods are produced at a faster rate. Now, wages are increasing. That means more number of people are getting more amount of money. Demand for goods is increasing. That means more amount of people want to purchase more number of goods. And the goods are also increasing, right? But these goods might not catch up with the demand. Okay. And in that case, since all the people are having their wages high, that means there are more number of people willing to purchase a good. There are more number of people willing to purchase a good. But if there is a supply demand deficit of that specific good, okay, what will happen? Since more number of people are purchasing goods, but the demand is high, okay, but the supply is not sufficient, that will lead to a rise in price. Okay, that will lead to a rise in price. It is very simple. If something is low in supply, its cost will be high. If something is high in demand, its cost will be high. Okay. Okay. If something is high in supply, its cost will be low because it is available easily, so everyone can buy it. If the demand of some good is low, okay, so its cost will be low because it is not very highly demanded. Okay, so I believe you understood how inflation happens. Now, where did it all start? Where did it all start? It all started with SBI having a lot of money. SBI having a lot of money. It is loaning to a lot of corporates, people, due to which wages are increasing and demand is also increasing. Demand for goods is increasing. So RBI, what RBI can do is to counter this inflation. The main work of RBI is to pull the money back from the system. What it can do? Since SBI was having a lot of money, it was loaning to everyone. Okay. Since SBI was having a lot of money, it was loaning to everyone. What RBI can do is, it can increase repo rate. Now, what is repo rate? Repo rate is no rocket science, it's a very simple term we used. Repo rate means repurchase obligation. Repurchase obligation. Now, what is repurchase obligation? We'll be looking at. What is repurchase obligation, right? Correct. Now, since RBI wants to pull the money back from the system, what does it do? It starts selling securities, government securities, to SBI. Okay? Now, why will SBI borrow these securities in the first place? First of all, SBI is bound to borrow these securities to complete its SLR and CRR quota. Not CRR but SLR quota. First of all, so banks borrow from time to time to complete their SLR quota. Okay. Secondly, these securities are very strong. They have very strong backing by the RBI itself. So the risk of default at these securities is low. And since the SBI is having excess cash, it can use this excess cash to borrow some security and get some interest on it. Get some interest. Okay? Interest how? RBI says that, okay, SBI purchase this security from me. For example, it is a security of rupees 100 crore. Okay? Purchase this 100 crore security from me and I will give you 2% interest on this security. And after 14 days, I will purchase that security back. So you can also earn interest on that and your money will also come back to you. Okay? So in that case, it can be 14 days or more than that also. So in that case, the money from SBI is being pulled back to RBI and the SBI is purchasing securities. Okay? That means the capital available with SBI to loan out decreases. Right? And when that capital decreases, SBI cannot loan out because of the specific leverage ratios. Okay? And that is how SBI becomes deficit in cash. And thus it cannot loan out further. Right? Understood? So this is how SBI, the supply of money in the market is reduced and RBI controls the inflation in this way. Okay, let's get back to our lecture. Now, monetary policy framework is that when the government and RBI collectively decide some specific inflation levels. Okay, that is decided as 4 plus minus 2%. Right? What constitutes the inflation target failure? And monetary policy, the RBI has to perform its monetary policy such that the inflation remains between this level. And that can be done through a lot of tools, as you can see here, quantitative tools and qualitative tools. repo rate, reverse repo rate, bank rate, MSF. I have explained this all in one of my lectures. You can just go through and search inflation targeting Amit sir and you will find it. Okay, I'm not going to explain that actually. What constitutes failure of inflation targeting? Either the upper and lower level of inflation have been breached, or the average inflation is less than the lower tolerance level for any 3 consecutive quarters. Okay, so that means the very same thing. Either the upper level has been breached or the lower level has been breached. Okay. In case of failure, the Monetary Policy Committee has to explain to the government the reasons for failure, the remedial actions proposed to be taken by RBI, and an estimating period. The RBI has to also specify an estimating period within which the target will be achieved. Okay. So Monetary Policy Committee is a 6-member body, 3 of which are from RBI, 3 of which are from government appointed, and it is chaired by the governor of the RBI, who is the ex officio chairman of Monetary Policy Committee. Okay, governor of RBI is the ex officio chairperson of Monetary Policy Committee. Is required to meet at least 4 times a year, and each member of the MPC has 1 vote. Okay, in event of an equality vote, the governor has the second casting vote. That means the governor will vote in the first instance also, and if there is a tie, if 3 members vote for one thing, 3 members vote for another thing, then the governor can cast his casting vote. Each member of the Monetary Policy Committee writes a statement specifying the reason for voting in favor of or against the proposed Monetary Policy Committee resolution. Okay, so these are the tools used for controlling inflation. I believe you understood this, and I would advise you to go through the inflation targeting lecture that I have explained in one of my videos at great length. Kindly go through that, and still if you have some issues, you can reach me out in the comment section. I'll be taking those comments in the next lecture.